We now have some audio on that feed coming into us from Melbourne, where authorities are giving an update on the flooding situation in Victoria. Let's listen in.
As you're trying to protect your community and town. But yesterday, fortunately, those higher rainfall totals were very localised in nature. Walpy up in the Mallee had 44 millimetres. At the top end of the Goulburn near Seymour, Ashbridge had about 34 millimetres. But those rainfall totals, because they were localised, has meant that the river systems haven't responded too quickly to those. And while there have been some river rises, it hasn't resulted in significant changes or an upgrade of the major warnings that we have in place. So while this was going on yesterday, we're also monitoring a low pressure system moving down the east coast of New South Wales. And that produced in excess of 100 millimetres in the last 24 hours in southern New South Wales, and we were a bit worried that that might cause some problems in the far east of the state. So we have seen heavy rain there, but fortunately the order of 50 or 60 millimetres, and that's in the Cann and Genoa catchments, where we've seen a response to that rainfall resulted in minor flood warnings being issued. So it certainly is a statewide issue. Flood warnings in the north, flooding in the east, and the Bureau of Meteorology still has a flood watch in place for many catchments over the southwest, and including Melbourne catchments as well. But fortunately, the rainfall we've had so far hasn't resulted in a reissue of many of those warnings for those river systems, and that includes the Maribyrnong as well. We're seeing no river rises in that river system of note to date. So what do we expect now going forward? Well, good news around the Northern Plains is only showery conditions, isolated totals, mostly the order of a mil or two here or there. So that's good news for our flood-affected locations. It's a bit of a different story in the south and about the dividing range north of Melbourne through to the northeast and down towards South Gippsland, where over the next few days we'll see some pretty persistent shower activity, cumulative falls on each day of about 5 to 15 millimetres, and locally getting up to around sort of 30 millimetres. What that means is we're keeping an eye on the upper Yarra catchment and what that might do in terms of the Yarra River, and also the northeast catchments. Now, fortunately, the cumulative falls over those days, while they might amount to, say, 30 or 50 millimetres in the northeast, doesn't look like there'll be a major response into the river systems such as the Ovens and the King and the Upper Murray. So elevated river levels for sure, but not enough to trigger significant flood warnings. The next weather system